2:00.
Yes, I am.
Here are your hosts, Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Brought to you by Bubbles and Blocks.
Welcome into the Recruiting Hour. Mike Schaefer and not Connor Happer. It is the last work day of his vacation. He will still be traveling back, I think, Monday. I don't know if he gave himself the buffer day, which has become the veteran vacation move, but I will be joined by Ravi Lula. Ravi, are you a buffer day guy or are you
I'm like a buffer 2 or 3 day guy.
Okay, I feel like, have we talked about this?
I don't know, but
Was it your dad that would fly back from India and just go to work the next day?
He'll get in at like 11 o'clock from a 36-hour
Insane. Yeah, we have talked about this.
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
He's in his 70s, and he's just like, all right, time to go to work. First of all, I'm like, you're in your 70s. Why are you still working? He's like, well, I'm bored. Like, okay, fair enough.
So that one I get slightly.
I get it, but it's also like you've been working so long that you start off with, I don't know, 6 weeks of PTO, whatever job he takes. And it's like, you could take the extra day to not go to work. And he's like, nope, got to go back to work.
Is your dad one of those people who likes to work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He enjoys staying busy and working. And
like a Mike Sauter.
Yeah. And he likes what he does, which helps a lot. But I'm not that way. I mean, I like some of the things that I do. I like this.
Yeah.
But I would still take a buffer day from this if returning from vacation.
I like being busy as opposed to having to figure out how to use too much free time. At the same time, I have definitely become like I want like the day to resettle after the vacation person.
Oh,
and
100%.
I never used to be. Now I'm on board with that. I actually have 2 buffer days built into my honeymoon because that first day it's going to be, from what everyone tells me, like you get back and you have to sort of reassemble whatever happened in the time that you were gone. You probably in some cases have presents or things that need to be moved around or gathered, and then it's just like apparently that like first day back is not remotely relaxing.
No, it's chaos. I
decided to give myself a second day to just be afforded at least one day in which there was no chaos. So I doubled down on it, but I never used to do the buffer day. I would get the earliest flight out, the latest flight back in as often as possible, and then just deal with whatever the consequences. And now it's just like, I can't even imagine doing that.
Yeah. I'm like a day and a half buffer guy, at least like minimum, because I'll do midday flight in, get settled. Cause I don't want to go and then not be able to check into my hotel immediately.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to leave and then have to wander around all day, not having a hotel to have my stuff at. So basically, whatever checkout time is, my flight is going to be within a couple hours of that, right? Check in, check out time. So I'm a midday. Usually, it's like a 4 o'clock check in. I'll usually pay for an early to get to like a 2.
Yep.
And then check out is like 11. I'll usually pay to get to noon or 1. So I like my midday. Yeah. I like my midday departures, and then I'll use the half day once I get back to relax, and then I'll take the full day after that because I'll be honest, I need my decompression time.
Yeah, I just see, that's a very logical, sane, rational reason for what you do. I will show up in a city with the inability to check in until a certain time and either go to, if I'm staying at the hotel, or go to like the hotel and just try to leave my bags there.
Which they usually let you do. They usually
most of the time they're good about it.
Closet or something they'll lock for you.
I have also used hotels that are not where I'm staying, and the bad guys basically like, yeah, just throw me an extra $5. And so I have definitely just like walked into some fancier, nicer hotels and been like, can I just leave my luggage here even though I'm staying not here?
Yeah.
And usually those people are like, yeah, I'll just take a little extra money. So
usually the right amount of a tip will get anything done. Yeah. For me, I'm very attached to my baggage. Partially because I'm diabetic, so there's like thousands of dollars of medical supplies in there, and I'm like, I can't lose that. The other thing is I'm just an anxious person, so I am just like, I don't want my, like, I went to Indianapolis to go to Creighton Butler a couple years ago and do the whole Hinkle thing and whatever, which was
fun.
How
was a Hinkle thing?
It's a bad place to watch a game. It's a cool place to take a tour.
No, that's not good. Bad place to watch a game because the sight lines are bad?
I shouldn't say bad. It's an old place to
Okay.
watch a game. There's actual sight lines and stuff are not bad, at least if you have good seats.
Yeah.
There are, because they turned the court at one point to allow for more seating.
Yep.
If you're really far up, it's probably a tough go, but I was in the media spot, so it wasn't bad. But in terms of bathrooms, food, all that kind of stuff, it's like a Rosenblatt thing, basically. So it was really fun to go, but I had more fun just walking around the day before when it was empty than I did actually watching the game there. Now, that might have been because Creighton got boat raced also. That probably didn't help. But I really like walking around stadiums when they're empty and kind of just checking them out, especially old places, and just kind of checking them out and having fun.
Just like letting yourself imagine Bobby Plump holding the ball for 7 minutes.
I don't believe in Bobby Plump. I only subscribe to Jimmy Chitwood.
The sexier Hollywood version of it.
100%.
When I first found out that they held the ball for 7 minutes to get to a final shot.
Yeah, it's
in that
really
game,
disheartening.
It like gutted me in a way that's hard to describe, because when I first I had never seen Hoosiers until high school. I'd never heard of it, and I came across it. Like, I think a fair amount of people my age would have, through Bill Simmons, who never shut up about Hoosiers. And so it's like, all right, I have to watch this movie if he's going to reference it in 3 out of
Constantly.
every 5 columns.
Yeah.
Especially around this time of year in March Madness. And so I finally watched it, and the movie is just I loved it. Like,
yeah,
I loved it
I love
instantly.
Hoosiers.
I know some people don't particularly care for it. One of them being my coworker, Michael Brunts.
I have
massively overrated
I've got a Jimmy Chitwood Hickory
jersey.
T-shirt jersey.
Okay.
Yeah. The
I thought
jersey.
you were going to say the warm-up jacket.
Oh, the
'Cause I've
warm-up
seen
jacket
people
would
walking
be
around
sick.
with that. And I've
Those-
been like, oh man,
Those would be pretty
Yeah.
sick. But no, so like I'm all in on Hoosiers. I love Hoosiers. But and okay, when you look at the time frame, you're like, okay, it makes sense that they held the ball for 7 minutes. But after having watched the movie and then to find out the real part of it, and you're like, oh, that's terrible.
no, it's just like it just, like I said, it was a gut punch for me when I first noticed that. And then I just try to like push it out of my brain, except anytime it comes up, I'm always like, did you know that Bobby Plump held the ball for 7 minutes?
You have to ruin
I
it
almost
for,
said 7 months there. 7 minutes?
you have to ruin it for everyone else.
Because I am a terrible person.
So it's funny that you bring up Bill Simmons, because the number of things that I've watched because he wouldn't stop referencing them, and I was like, I have to understand the reference, is off the charts. I mean, so many of his pop culture references, I was like, well, I don't know what that is. Maybe I was too sheltered as a kid or something. Got to go watch it and catch up now. Whether it's Sopranos, whether it's
So Hoosiers would you agree that Hoosiers is the thing that he referenced the most?
so he did reference it a lot. It doesn't stick with me
Maybe
the same way
early days,
because
were more that.
I had seen it by the time he was referencing it, and so it didn't stick out to me like the stuff did that I hadn't seen. Like he used to reference 90210 all the time, and I never watched it, and I never have, and it sticks out to me really badly.
Do you have Roku at all?
I do, yeah.
So like if you just like are on the main menu and it sits for a little bit, and then different advertisements or whatever will just
on
do
the like screensaver. Yeah.
Yesterday, one of them was for 90210. And like I was across the room and I saw it, and it's like I couldn't tell what it was. And I was like, this looks familiar. And then I walk up and it's like, oh, it's 90210. And I've never watched it. I've never felt compelled to watch it. I understand from the olds, or not even really the olds, but people that are like 5 years older than us.
Yeah, it's like 5 to 10 years older. Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Oh, sure.
For me, it has no appeal whatsoever, because
Yes.
that version of that show has existed since then, if not before then,
100 times.
and every generation has their own version of it.
Well, and that's the thing is whether it's like the OC
Mm-hmm.
or
That was the first one that came to mind.
for me it was One Tree Hill. That was a big
Another
deal
one.
for me.
Gossip Girls in that same.
See, I didn't
Basically,
get
if
into
you're on
Gossip.
CW, there's a good
Yes.
chance that you're in that.
You
vein.
fill that niche,
Yep.
right? But yeah, it was one of those things that I think there just is a lot of versions of it, and so I never felt compelled to watch it. And listen, I'm not opposed to trash television. In fact, I love it.
covet it. I seek it.
Oh, I do. Let me tell you, I started watching The Bachelor for the first time the last couple weeks.
I can't.
It's terrible, and I love it. It's terrific.
What? Okay, so
Now, there's some very frustrating things about it. Don't get me wrong.
let me set up the show, and then we're getting back to it.
Okay.
We're not letting this go. Okay, so today's show, we're gonna dive into the news of the day, which is Delano Banton here in a little bit. And then later on in the show, we're going to walk through some decisions that recruits are going to be making over the weekend, where Nebraska sort of factors in, and then kind of the fallout if Nebraska were to miss out on some of these guys, kind of set some things up for the weekend, which I will say just off the bat doesn't look particularly great for Nebraska. So we'll just lead with that caveat. And of course, your questions. It's a Friday. We haven't done Statement Friday in a long time. Just give me 4th of July statements, and we will have Emmett read those on the air, whether it's about fireworks, whether it's about grilling out, whether it's about lake house, whatever it is. If you think the 4th of July is overrated, whatever you have to say about the 4th of July, we will read some of those statements later in the show to finish things out. All of that being said, I have questions about
Fire away.
Ravi and The Bachelor.
So let me be clear. So let me kind of clarify my position here. I am watching the current season of The Bachelorette, and I'm watching whatever season of The Bachelor is on Hulu right now. I think it's the most recent season.
No. You're going through old seasons.
Well, yes, I am. I have a lot of time to fill in terms of watching television. But I haven't finished either season. So I have yet to finish a Bachelor or Bachelorette season. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Full disclosure, have not watched any single season, like from start to finish.
Sure.
I've caught snippets. I have not invested much, if any, time into any real, even individual episode, but I have been around and the television has been on.
Sure.
And have caught enough to know.
Yeah.
It's one of these shows that I feel like you know about, even if you've never watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is so much out there. And like, I don't know that I could just recite any of the names at this point, but
Right.
like you've heard of these couples, none of them ever last together.
Correct.
So what I want to know is, what is the biggest appeal about that show to you,
Sure.
knowing going in that there's little chance that they're going to stay together, and also that the archetypes of these people are so defined now.
Yeah.
That it's not like it's the real world where you're the third year in and there's like a different type of energy to the show.
Sure.
This is the 15th iteration of the same concept with the same people.
Yep.
So what new ground is there for you?
Well,
And I know you're just coming to it.
Yes.
So that's a harder question for you to answer.
Well, so let me go back a little bit. So I've never really been into the dating reality shows. I really enjoy the challenge.
Mhm.
Because I like the competition and the petty drama and stuff like that. So I enjoy that part of it because it's like sports meets reality TV,
Yep.
and I'm a fan. And then like I said, I'll watch like trash scripted television just because it's whatever. But this is my first foray into dating television was last year during the pandemic. Love is Blind came out on Netflix, which basically they didn't get to see each other before they picked their match.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is genius. I love it. I really wanted somebody to be like super ugly, and they didn't really have any like super ugly people. But I think
That's
that's
not the way those shows operate.
no, but that's the ultimate goal of that show is you have somebody, even if they're not super ugly, that the other person is just like, oh, like when they see them. Because that's on the table.
Why would you want that moment though?
Because it's really compelling to see how that would play out.
But think about the ugly person.
Well, no, so I don't want them to be ugly so much as them to be not attractive to the other person. So they could be
Well,
like
sure, but-
objectively like an 8.
Like that's going to be televised. Like that's
Yeah, but you signed up
branded
for this.
forever.
You signed up for this.
yeah. Well, no, I understand.
So that's where I got interested in like dating television. And I was like, okay, this is a little interesting. And so while waiting for season 2 of Love is Blind, I was like, putzing around the internet, and I was like, oh, there's a new season of The Bachelorette. Why not? Because Hulu like featured it for me.
Mhm.
And I was like, whatever. And so I started watching it. So here's the appeal that I find to The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is I like basically prognosticating. Like I like trying to filter through the interactions and
Yeah.
stuff and being like, oh, that person's getting a rose. That person's out of here. That person wants to be the next bachelor.
Oh man.
That's what I like about it. I just like prognosticating. because I like being right. Like I like.
How do you feel like you've done so far?
I'm actually pretty good at it.
Okay.
So far. There might be some surprises out there for me still. But usually if I think somebody's gone within a week, they're gone. And so, yeah, I like predicting things and being right. And it offers me that avenue. And I have pretty much no knowledge of who ends up with whoever. And so I could go back through all the seasons and I would have the same amount of enjoyment as if it was happening in real time.
Because you don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea what the final
all
matchups
of it
are.
would be relatively fresh.
Yeah, it's new to me. So that's the appeal for me is the predictions.
Okay. All right. I can see that a little bit. Will you watch the new Netflix show where they have the mask
Sexy Beast?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I'm in.
I just don't understand.
Listen, I don't either entirely. I like that they're trying different things with the dating show setup. And I just kind of want to see how they play out.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because for the most part, I was a relatively unsuccessful dater until, spoiler alert, I'm about to get married. Nothing about the world was appealing when I was attempting to foray into it.
Sure. So here's
like this like televised pseudo scripted thing doesn't even seem fun or appealing to me.
Well, so I don't think it's fun. Like watching them on the shows, I'm like, oh, a lot of them seem miserable.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of fun for me to be like, because a lot of the complaints will be like, it's just really hard seeing him date 10 other women. It's like, you knew what the show was. This has been around for 20 years. They didn't throw you a curveball. The only thing you knew for sure that was going to happen was that you were going to be dating other women at the same time. And so that's fun to me and then also the house dynamics are kind of fun to me because they're like, I thought this person was my friend. And it's like, I wouldn't make friends with anybody in the house. Like, what are you doing?
Do you like house shows in general? Like, did you get into Real World, Big Brother, that kind of thing?
I never got into Big Brother. The Real World thing, I like house shows where there's another objective. So, like Real World, it's basically just a house show, right? Yeah. But in like the challenge, you have the challenges, but then you have the house stuff. So I really enjoy that because there's an external driver of the drama. It's not just people being nuts. Although some of it is just people being nuts, but there is some like external pressure, kind of causing some of it. And you get that same dynamic with The Bachelor where it's like, okay, you all are trying to achieve the same thing. And at the end of the day, that not all of you can achieve that thing. So why are you surprised that they stabbed you in the back? At some point, there will be backstabbing. That's the nature of the thing. And yet people are constantly shocked by it, which I find hilarious.
Is there any part of you that hopes that at some point, like, be it two bros or two women, just decide that they're going to choose their friendship that they've forged with each other over chasing the other person? I wonder if that's already happened.
I don't know. I don't know that I hope for that.
It feels like a wrestling storyline.
It does.
Yeah.
I don't know that I actively.
But you also look like you were really into wrestling if you were into trash TV.
I actually never got into wrestling.
That amazes me.
Yeah. So part of it was I didn't have cable growing up. And so like in middle school, when all my friends were into it, I was just like, well, I've heard of these people because you guys talk about them a lot.
I don't know who they are.
But I don't know who they are. And that was like in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the internet wasn't really like good enough to figure things out yet.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a blind spot in my trash TV resume.
Nah, really would be. There's no reason for you to get into it now. But I would if you ever had a kid, it would be funny if like your kid got into wrestling and then you're like, oh, this whole world has been opened up.
Oh, I'm sure it would pull me in if I had a reason to. But at this point, I had from some friends in college that were really into it from being in like middle school or whatever, and I tried to enjoy it with them, and I was like, I'm out.
I have a friend who now has 2 sons. And I think his single biggest wish for his kids is not that they're athletic or that they're smart or that, they get by in life without much issues. It's that they like wrestling enough that he can justify still liking it into his 40s.
That's the thing is like I've heard people say that there where they're like, I really hope my kid likes wrestling so I can justify to my wife buying the pay-per-views.
Yeah. I think that's my friend. I think that's what I don't know if he get the pay-per-views, but he wants to be able to guilt-free have like Raw on a Monday.
Yeah, sure.
Instead of feeling compelled to either, watch whatever else or Monday Night Football or whatever. I think he just wants it's like a get out of jail card. Oh, my kid's into it,
That's kind of honestly, that's how I am with just watching regular sports now. Like if my wife wants to either watch something else or do something else, I'm like, oh babe, for the show, I gotta watch it.
I have never used that line.
Well, I usually don't have to use the line. She usually, if she comes in and sees I'm watching sports, she'll say, "Is this for radio?" And I'll just be like, "Yes." Which, because like you don't know what you're going to talk about, so like it all kind of is.
I've explained current on things.
Yeah, I've explained it to her. I was like, "Listen, I'm going to watch this. I don't know if we're going to talk about it or not because it's kind of a fluid show, right? But I have to stay current on most things that are happening."
What's something as an example that you watched that if you didn't feel like if you didn't have radio the next day that you probably would have skipped altogether? Is there
every Nebraska basketball game? Every single one.
Well, guess what, Robbie?
Because
that's a good transition.
It's a tough look.
Speaking of tough looks, Delano Banton has stayed in the NBA draft.
That's professional radio, folks.
Yeah. No, that's you set me up well for that. Today's opening splash brought to you by the Pawnee Plunge in Columbus. Delano Banton, I don't know whether I should view this as a surprise or not as a surprise. The guard, or really sort of positionless basketball player from Canada, joined Nebraska from Western Kentucky, played in the 2020-2021 season. He declared for the NBA draft at the end of May. He allowed for the option that he would return to Nebraska. Today reports have announced, and it has been confirmed through others here in the local media, including Chris Bassnett, that Delano Banton will be staying in the NBA draft. I don't foresee him getting drafted. So I just wonder if this is like I'm sort of just done with the college aspect of things, and it might be time for me to move on. I also wonder, and part of this is just because of how the team will be set up for next year, if there really wasn't much of a role for him to come back to at Nebraska.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not.
Which is weird to say of a guy who's staying in the NBA draft.
Right. I'm not terribly surprised by this. You could go back on the podcast and listen. When Connor and I were talking about who's back, who's not from this team, I would always bring up, I was like, I don't know that Delano Banton's back. And he's like, well, I assume he would be. And then he put his name in the draft and everybody kind of thought it was just testing the waters. And he seems like one of those guys whose game fits better in the NBA than it does in college. That's one thing for me. The other thing is and that's not to say that he'll even get drafted, but I do think his skill set fits better in the NBA. The other thing is I'm guessing some of the feedback he got back was, okay, here are the things you need to work on, but you're not going to fix them in college.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest thing that he has to do is find a consistent outside jumper. And I don't know that was going to happen.
And get a little stronger. He needs to get stronger and be able to keep people honest on a jump shot.
Mm-hmm.
I also think he needs to tighten up his handle quite a bit to be a primary ball handler.
He turned it over way too much for someone who's a point forward.
Yeah. If he wants to be a primary ball handler, he has to tighten up the handle a little bit. Now, if he can beef up a little bit and be an actual forward and not have to play the guard positions or defend the guard positions, then he could probably get away with it. But tightening the handle up would be smart for him.
His lack of other offensive skills tells me that he sort of has to be the primary ball handler, though.
Yeah, if
he's a forward with no range or limited range, and it's not like he has back to the basket moves.
So here's the option is the Draymond role. Now, offensively, obviously he doesn't have the defensive skill set or switchability that Draymond does because there's like 4 people in the world that do. But if you take from an offensive standpoint, so if he's setting the pick on the pick and roll situation, and then you know how they love to double the ball handler, the primary ball handler in those situations, if the primary ball handler can slip it to Banton, you basically have a 4-on-3 from the 3-point line in, and then you can make really good decisions with the basketball. That would be a perfect spot for him. Now, obviously, I just described a very specific scenario, right? Now, it's a scenario that happens quite a bit in the NBA, but it's a very specific scenario that only works with very specific teammates, right?
Yep.
A primary ball handler that gets doubled a lot on the pick and roll, which there's a handful of in the league. And then you have shooters to keep everybody honest in the 4-on-3 situation that gets created. So I do think that role is available to him as a non-primary ball handler, but he's going to have to improve his rebounding quite a bit and his defending quite a bit to justify being on the floor to take advantage of that position.
So do you anticipate, I would be stunned if he was drafted.
I wouldn't be stunned if somebody's taking a second round flyer. I don't expect that, but I wouldn't be stunned. I mean, once you get past like 40, 45, people are kind of just taking flyers on people they think are interesting. I think
Bull, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. And even Bull even had like a really high profile in terms of obviously his dad, but recruiting process. And he was highly productive at Oregon in the 8 games or whatever he played there. So he was a little different. I think that was more injury concerns, but again, it's a flyer
on a lack of a traditional NBA body, given how small he was.
You just take a flyer on like, hey, I think there's something there. I don't know if it ever works out here. I expect him to be either an unsigned free agent, go to the G League. I would expect him to try and go the G League route. He doesn't strike me as a European option guy, because usually those are guys that are fairly polished in terms of their skill set, and their ceiling just isn't quite high enough for the NBA.
And those guys tend to be better offensive players in Europe, because you sort of have to have the ability to create your own stuff over there.
Now,
and also just shoot it.
Right. Now,
he doesn't have either of those.
It wouldn't shock me if at some point, as he develops and doesn't quite make it into the NBA, if he ended up in Europe, because it's not quite as physical of a game, he could probably get away playing a 4 spot over there if he does develop some other things. But yeah, right now I have to imagine he'll try the G League route to try and develop some of those skills.
Yeah, it's just weird because I don't feel like my general thoughts on Nebraska basketball for the upcoming season changes at all.
It doesn't change for me at all.
If he had come back, which is such a weird thing to say about someone that's declared for the NBA draft, but he's such an odd fit with what it became apparent that Hoiberg wants to do.
Yeah.
That it even calls into question like what the vision was with Delano Banton sort of in the first place.
I mean, I think the vision was, I've got this huge point guard who can spray it out to everybody else that shoots the lights out of the ball. And eventually he'll shoot it good enough to keep people honest.
Yeah, it's just the reality of what we ended up seeing was that he just didn't handle so that was the shooting is one thing.
He didn't handle it well enough to be a point guard. I felt like
he wasn't. His passes either felt off, like the timing was thrown off, and some of that was just Nebraska's offenses.
Nebraska was just bad. I mean,
and so it's hard to. Yeah. I don't want to just spend this time dumping on him because we heard very early on in the short recruitment that Nebraska had of Delano Banton from Western Kentucky, Evan Daniels, who now works in the NBA as an agent for an agency, was the head at 24/7 Sports of our basketball department. Loved Banton, basically told us he expects him to be a guy that could be taken in the NBA should he develop under Hoiberg, thought that he was someone that would only need 1 year. So this all fits in line with what Evan Daniels thought. It's just that the version that we saw was never quite what Evan had described. And then I just don't know if it was Nebraska's island of misfit toys last year.
I think that's part of it.
If it was just he wasn't quite as advanced as maybe what Evan was projecting at that point.
I think both of those things are true.
And then I also wonder, because he was here and sat out a year, like I feel like sometimes guys that either really benefits them, like a James Palmer or a Taran Petaway, and some guys don't get as much out of that year. And I wonder if Banton didn't get that much out of it because Nebraska was terrible. I just don't know quite what to make of all of it.
Yeah, I mean, redshirt years are really hard for some guys. They basically have played basketball every day for all of their lives, and to basically, not that they can't get shots up or whatever, but to take away the competitive aspect of that is really challenging for some people. Some guys do better with it than others. Obviously, I think they would have hoped that he advanced more in that off year than he did. I think they would have hoped that minus a COVID season where they missed 60 practices or whatever.
And I think he had it at one point too, because
I believe so.
He seemed like he was physically struggling, but
by the end of the season, he seemed physically weak.
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
And so I do think whatever happened there in terms of he just wasn't allowed in the facilities to work out during the pause or whatever. I don't know if that was just that or if he actually did get sick or whatever the case is there. But I think when you watch him, especially early in the season, you could see flashes of a really interesting skill set.
Mm-hmm.
I don't by any means think it's a skill set that is NBA ready. I don't even know that it's a skill set that was ready to contribute this upcoming year at Nebraska in a major way, or in the way that they would have needed him to. But I do think that, okay, you start off that he's 6'9", and he's got, in theory, incredible passing and vision.
Right.
And that already puts him ahead of 90% of the prospects, right?
Yeah.
And now listen, only 1% of the prospects get drafted. So being ahead of 90% only gets you so far. But he does have a really interesting skill set. I just don't know if that's enough or if he'll ever develop enough more of a skill set for it to get him where he wants to go.
Yeah. That's good stuff there. Talking Delano Banton. All right, we're going to take a break. We are running a little bit late. When we come back, we're going to dive into some recruiting. There are decisions coming up here starting tomorrow, and then, of course, the 4th and the 5th. Nebraska's involved in a few of them. Nebraskans are involved in a few of them. We'll talk about those. All that more here on the Recruiting Hour.
You're listening to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Did you know Myers Cork and Bottle offers complete beverage catering and bartending services for everything from tailgates to weddings? Learn more at MyersWine.com or by calling the shop at 476-1518. And don't miss Thirsty Thursday with Kevin Meyer, Thursdays at 4:30 on The Drive.
Herrick Services takes this time to wish everyone a happy and healthy Independence Day weekend. We live in the greatest country in the world and are thankful for our freedoms that are signified by this holiday and the sacrifices made to make it possible. This important message comes to you from Bart, Mike, and the folks down at Herrick Services, your vending specialist here in Lincoln. Their quality service and expertise has earned them a fine reputation. That's Herrick Services, on the air because they care.
Mike Shaver here. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaving changed my life the past few years with their 10-week challenge, and now you can get your life and fitness back on track too. Build muscle, burn fat, and lose weight with the 10-week challenge with orientation on July 10th and the workout starting July 12th. Their teamwork, accountability, and results keep you going 45 minutes at a time. And if you can't make it to the gym, they have an at-home video component now. Sign up today for the Farrell's 10-week challenge and mention the ticket for a 50% discount at fxblincoln.com.
Baseball's back, Lincoln, and that means Fireworks Fridays are too. Come out to Haymarket Park for Friday home games to celebrate the Lincoln Salt Dogs' 20th season with baseball, giveaways, and of course, post-game fireworks. We're glad to have you back in the stands. Watch us light up the sky for our celebration season. Get your tickets to the best night out in Lincoln at saltdogs.com.
Summertime is here and the temperature is rising. Beat the heat at the Pawnee Plunge Water Park in Columbus all summer long. Pawnee Plunge features a full day of fun for the whole family, including the Flow Ride, the only one in Nebraska, a large swimming pool, diving boards, a lazy river, climbing wall, and of course, massive water slides. It's a great place for parties or a great spot to lounge around all day long. Book your party by calling 402-562-4269. Come splash and play the Pawnee Plunge Way in Columbus from May 31st through August 8th.
Take a look at your backyard. Does it feel like something is missing? You're right. Now is the perfect time to get an above-ground swimming pool from Bonsall Pool and Spa. Above-ground pools require less space than in-ground pools, are temporary structures if you ever choose to move, and are low maintenance. Plus, you'll never have to worry about the kids getting bored in the summertime anymore. Visit BonsallPool.com to schedule a pool service or visit them at 33rd and Highway 2. Bonsall Pool and Spa.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard, increase security, and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Your home isn't going to fix itself, and you're busy enough as it is. So let Cornhusker Construction put the work in to upgrade your house. They do everything interior and exterior, including full remodel jobs. Are your kitchen and bathrooms outdated? Cornhusker Construction can help with that, with new flooring, painting, drywall, and anything else. Take advantage of their summer sale with 4% off for the rest of the summer. Call them today at 308-708-0709. Cornhusker Construction.
Mike Schaefer here with 5-star child care provider Lee Beecher from Bubbles and Blocks. Let's start with what makes Bubbles and Blocks special.
We have 3 beautiful locations in Lincoln that provide the safety, security, and reliability you need while also bringing a family feel to each classroom at every location.
I also hear some congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Yes, we just won the Lincoln Choice Award for Best Daycare and Preschool for the 3rd year in a row.
What should people do if they want to join the Bubbles and Blocks family?
Call to set up a tour to enroll your child today, or you can visit bubblesandblocks.com to apply to join our team.
Back to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer, presented by Bubbles and Blocks. On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Hour. Mike Schaefer. Almost said Connor Happer out of routine. It is not Connor Happer. Connor Happer could not grow a beard that thick.
You know, most people can't.
I don't even know. I mean, yours is thicker than mine. Mine's not far from it, though.
No, yours is
feel
pretty close.
It's in the range. I'm getting it trimmed up though. Though I was informed, my fiance basically was like, I'd rather you just like leave it. She likes the bigger, more full beard.
She likes the chipmunk look.
Yeah, I hate it because it's at the stage where like random hairs are getting into the corner of my mouth when I'm eating food.
You got to trim the mustache. That's
it's
crucial.
just the worst, and so it needs to be trimmed up. So we'll get that done. All right, I promised some recruiting. We'll get some recruiting in for the long weekend ahead. There are going to be 4 decisions between now and next Wednesday that involve either Nebraska targets or players that are from Nebraska. So we'll start on Saturday the 3rd. Deshaun Woods from Omaha Central is set to announce his commitment. He is deciding between a handful of teams, but notably, it really feels like it's down to Missouri and Arizona State for him. I believe he's at the Boys and Girls Club in Omaha doing that on Saturday. The crystal ball activity, the projections, the what I have been hearing, basically, it looks like it's going to be Missouri, which is pretty fascinating because their coach, whose name I never actually pronounced correctly, Elia Drinkwitz, I believe.
Yes.
Probably as close as I'm going to get it.
That's fine.
And he is he's on a bit of a heater right now in terms of recruiting. I'm going to pull this up just to make sure it's accurate. So they finished with a top 30 class last year. Right now, Missouri has, a heater for them. So they're basically the same exact spot as they were in last year, but they have a quarterback in Sam Horn that's a top 100 player in the country. They got a defensive lineman from right there in Missouri that's another top 247 guy. They have a couple other ones as well from their state. They've done a nice job cleaning up in the state of Missouri, which is something that previous coaches there, whether it was Barry Odom or Gary Pinkel or whomever, they didn't always protect that.
It's a good state to clean up in. There's
area.
pretty
And it's
good
hard.
amount.
I mean, St. Louis is kind of like in that cross section of, you have a ton of SEC teams now that treat Missouri as an SEC state, which cracks me up.
Sure.
Previously you weren't seeing those schools come in recruiting St. Louis. Ohio State has always made St. Louis a big priority.
I know Illinois goes into
Illinois,
Missouri a lot.
And Lovie Smith hired that coach that was at the school, where Isaiah Williams was at, and they were able to bring in some players that way. Clemson has recently made Missouri a big deal. Oklahoma has
Oklahoma
really gone hard into
hammers
St. Louis
Missouri.
and Kansas City.
Yeah.
Texas has really gone hard into St. Louis. USC has pulled players out of St. Louis and Kansas City here in the last 5 years or so. So what he has done there is pretty remarkable, and he could be adding another top 247 player on Saturday with Deshaun Woods, who again removed Nebraska from consideration pretty early on, but the 4-star offensive lineman is right now projected to end up with the Tigers, which would put them inside the top 25 here in the 2022 class. So that one is happening on Saturday.
Real quick question on Deshaun Woods, and maybe not about him specifically. How much in general, obviously it's basically down to them and Arizona State, you said. How much does the Arizona State stuff impact decisions of kids like today?
I think it matters, especially if you could also potentially be caught up in it. I don't know that Woods is.
Sure.
It's been reported that a couple guys from Nebraska are, and there's been several that they all have offers from Arizona State.
Right.
So I don't want to implicate anybody, but it would make it easier to avoid Arizona State if there's also concern that you could be caught in the investigation
in the web.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily want that. And so I think that's part of it. I also just feel like Missouri sort of took the lead for him at the beginning of June and kind of just held on.
Okay.
For whatever reason. I think that staff has done a nice job recruiting. And they were a school that he identified pretty quickly as one that he liked, that I think a lot of people wrote out of when he released his top 5, because it wasn't a school that was connected with Jackson. You know, everybody, as we often do, when two guys talk about how they're thinking about going to school together, we just assume that it's going to happen.
Yeah, you assume that
And
it's a
then
package deal.
As it often does, it doesn't happen. And every year we're like, these things just don't happen. But then the next year we're like, well, these guys are talking about playing with each other. So
they're really good friends. They might want to go to the same school.
I feel like I have a pretty good radar for like that stuff, and yet I still get caught up in it every now and then. That wasn't one of them, because I wasn't convinced that Woods was going to go to Miami, and it feels like that's sort of where Jackson was trying to pull that recruitment. And so we'll see with Jackson. He's going to make a decision, I think, later in the summer. But Woods to Missouri on Saturday is kind of where things are trending there. Sunday is kind of the marquee one, at least around here, as far as Nebraska fans go. James Mons III, the nephew or great nephew of Wander Mons, the former All-American defensive back in the 70s at Nebraska. He's come out here for a visit. He also visited Indiana, and he visited Wisconsin. Mississippi State involved as well, but they're fairly distant in this whole thing. I think it's just to prevent the entire thing from being red with Indiana, Nebraska, and Wisconsin. You get a little maroon in there, I guess. But all the information that I gathered last night and through talking with a couple different people, including those that cover Indiana and Wisconsin, Nebraska might be running third here, which shocked me.
Okay.
You know, I wouldn't have been surprised if they didn't get him, which it doesn't look like they're going to. The fact that they got jumped by Wisconsin surprised me.
Okay.
And right now I have a crystal ball in for Indiana. I can say with full honesty that I don't know that that's going to be correct either, because Wisconsin is still working really hard. I know they were in contact with him as of yesterday. And I've heard through those conversations also that Indiana feels very confident about where they sit with him. Indiana, of course, has a couple things going in their favor. He's friendly with the McCulloughs from the Kansas City area. Dylan McCullough was a running backs coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is now the associate head coach at Indiana. His son, Deshaun McCullough, was a high 4-star, near 5-star out of the Kansas City area, was committed to Ohio State, has moved his commitment to Indiana to follow his dad.
Sure.
And then the Mullins from Florida, Tywan Mullen, who Nebraska really wanted back in the 2019 class. He was here the same weekend as Bryce Benhart and as Wandale Robinson and Brant Banks and some of those other guys. They had like a big visit weekend. He was probably the least discussed of those visitors. He was a freshman All-American after 1 year at Indiana. Really, really good defensive back. And I am his younger brother, whose first name I cannot remember, just committed to Indiana as well. And so I know that they're tight with the Mons family. And so there could be some real pull there too. So I put it in a crystal ball for Indiana. It could be either Indiana or Wisconsin. Maybe Nebraska can circle back into this. But as of last night, it seemed like Nebraska was, of the three, the one furthest from gaining a commitment there, which
not looking super promising now.
He has the highest Q rating of any of Nebraska's targets in this 2022 class. So that has not been met well on the message boards. And I'm not sure that the commentary here will be met well on the text line. And we'll go from there. On July 5th, Justin Williams is set to make a decision. He's a running back out of Georgia. West Virginia kind of pulled ahead there. They had the second visit. Nebraska hosted him the first weekend. We had him on this show, which is only going to propel the belief that whenever we have recruits on, when they're not committed, they don't go to Nebraska. We promise this is not planned. It's just how it works. You offer a bunch of people, you recruit a bunch of people, you get like a third of them. We're just picking from the wrong third, I guess.
Also, maybe they just don't like us.
It's possible. I mean, I thought it was a great interview, and Justin even said so. But West Virginia has had a nice run of things as well. They just picked up Nico Marichal, the quarterback there. So they are probably the favorites. That's a July 5th decision. And then Micah Riley Ducker is deciding next Wednesday on July 7th. I know Auburn's in the mix there. Arizona State was in the mix at one point in time. I believe Wisconsin, but it looks like all signs are pointing that Bellevue West will send a second straight player to Iowa as he will join Keegan Johnson is kind of the prediction at this point. And that makes sense. Micah Riley Ducker is really interesting. I don't know exactly how he fits in 2021 football as a tight end right now.
Sure.
There's a lot of conversation that if he was willing, he could be a really interesting offensive line prospect. I don't know if that's what he wants to do.
Willing in terms of just putting the weight on.
Yeah. Well, you have to have the mentality of, okay, I'm not going to get the ball anymore.
Sure.
Like, I've just got to, so that's a tough thing for some people to do. I don't know if he's quite at that point yet, but I've heard that he could be a pretty good offensive lineman if he wanted to go that route. I know Mike Sauter has talked about that in the past too. So,
I mean, Iowa would make sense there.
Yeah. Either of those, but he's
tight
not,
end also, but
he's not George Kittle, Noah Fant. Like, he just doesn't have that explosiveness.
Yeah.
He's physical, but so are the dudes in college. Like, it's just it's honestly one of those things where I will be very curious what position he's playing 2-3 years into this.
Good tackle athleticism and good tight end athleticism are different things.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to take one more break. As I said, get those statements in. We will have Emmett read some of them. Your thoughts on the 4th of July. If you have questions, you can throw those in as well. If you have thoughts on The Bachelor and any other trash television, we'll take that.
I'm here for it.
It is just, we're going to finish up with the text line here on the Recruiting Hour.
You're listening to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Summertime is here and the temperature is rising. Beat the heat at the Pawnee Plunge Water Park in Columbus all summer long. Pawnee Plunge features a full day of fun for the whole family, including the Flow Ride, the only one in Nebraska, a large swimming pool, diving boards, a lazy river, climbing wall, and of course, massive water slides. It's a great place for parties or a great spot to lounge around all day long. Book your party by calling 402-562-4269. Come splash and play the Pawnee Plunge Way in Columbus from May 31st through August 8th. Mike Shaver here. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaving changed my life the past few years with their 10-week challenge, and now you can get your life and fitness back on track too. Build muscle, burn fat, and lose weight with the 10-week challenge with orientation on July 10th and the workouts starting July 12th. Their teamwork, accountability, and results keep you going 45 minutes at a time. And if you can't make it to the gym, they have an at-home video component now. Sign up today for the Farrell's 10-week challenge and mention the ticket for a 50% discount at fxblincoln.com.
Here's to days spent roaming and to sleeping beneath the stars, to casting another line and letting time float by. From Shadron State Park to Indian Cave State Park and every recreation area, historical and state park in between. Here's to your adventures, your memories. Here's to 100 years of your Nebraska State Parks. Plan your next trip today at NebraskaParks100.org. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
What are you doing, Sip? I thought the chickens could use some more light in their lives.
So you're building what exactly?
It's a motion censored switchboard. Duh.
Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Of course. Ow! God!
Ow! Seems like a job for a professional.
Just one more wire. Yep, there you go, right there.
Don't be like Chip. Call Joe at Ambition Electric for any of your electric needs at 402-217-3415.
Baseball's back, Lincoln, and that means Fireworks Fridays are too. Come out to Haymarket Park for Friday home games to celebrate the Lincoln Salt Dogs' 20th season with baseball, giveaways, and of course, post-game fireworks. We're glad to have you back in the stands. Watch us light up the sky for our celebration season. Get your tickets to the best night out in Lincoln at saltdogs.com.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Mike Schaefer here with 5-star child care provider Lee Beecher from Bubbles and Blocks. Let's start with what makes Bubbles and Blocks special.
We have 3 beautiful locations in Lincoln that provide the safety, security, and reliability you need while also bringing a family feel to each classroom at every location.
I also hear some congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Yes, we just won the Lincoln Choice Award for Best Daycare and Preschool for the 3rd year in a row.
What should people do if they want to join the Bubbles and Blocks family?
Call to set up a tour to enroll your child today, or you can visit bubblesandblocks.com to apply to join our team.
Welcome to Friendly Neighbors. Welcome to maintenance-free living. Welcome to Carriage Glen. Welcome home. It's everything you'd want in an active 55-plus rental community right here in Lincoln. Spacious floor plans, numerous amenities, beautiful surroundings near Holmes Lake, and much more. Plus, with Carriage Glen's current move-in special, you can save thousands if you act now. Carriage Glen invites you to take a personal tour or visit them online at carriageglenoflincoln.com. Discover the place you'll love to call home.
Back to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Presented by Bubbles and Blocks. On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back one final time here on the Recruiting Hour. Big thank you to Ravi sitting in for Connor Happer on this Friday. Happer returns on Tuesday. We will be reunited with one show, and then I will be gone after that for a while. And I don't feel bad about it at all. If anything, I feel bad that I'm even coming in on Tuesday. I should have just taken. I should have given a buffer day before the vacation.
I've done that, and I'm okay with it.
You buffered the vacation.
Yeah, well, listen, because packing is stressful, right?
Yeah.
And so I will, instead of just like coming home from work or whatever and packing, I just allow a whole day for it. And then I do a double check in the morning because my flight's not till the afternoon, obviously. Then we're good to go.
Do you ever feel compelled to clean before you travel? So if you come home, it's clean?
No, but my wife does.
Yeah.
She is a dirty house gives her like anxiety.
Yeah.
And for me, it doesn't. If it's like gross dirty, it does. If
Right,
it's cluttered, I'm just like, whatever.
Yep. I'm with that.
But she will clean like extensively before we go on vacation.
There's something amazing about you come back and you've been gone for like 7 days and you walk into your house and your kitchen hasn't been touched in that time period.
Yeah.
I do really appreciate that.
I understand.
Because I know it'll take me 7 minutes to make that go away.
I understand for sure making like tidying up, making sure there's no, you take the trash out beforehand, stuff like that. So there's no unpleasant surprises, but I just don't notice the difference between a slightly cluttered kitchen and a spotless, shining kitchen. That's just not I don't notice those things at all.
That's fair. Emmett, what do we got?
Okay, so a text from Jeff. Do you think there was some negative impact with James Mons and the whole Bill Moose situation right before?
I don't think that Bill Moose or Nebraska's AD situation has really anything to do with Nebraska's current recruiting. I think that if Mons chooses another school, it's on the strength of what that school has to offer more so than anything else. And you're talking about two programs in Indiana and Wisconsin that have won a lot more football games than Nebraska has over the last couple of years. So I think that's as big of a deal as whatever Bill Moose and his $2.9 million retirement.
Yeah, I need to get that kind of severance check. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Where's Mark?
Call the boss.
Yeah. Anything else?
So not a trash TV, but instead a great one and one of the top TV shows, Peaky Blinders. You both must watch it, and you'll thank me later.
I have never watched Peaky Blinders. It's been recommended to me a few different times. I don't know why I haven't watched it. It just hasn't made the cut. But I'm also kind of slow with some of the Netflix shows. I just watched Narcos last year.
I haven't watched Narcos yet.
And I stopped after 2 seasons because, I mean, anyone that's watched the show knows there's like a very change in the tenor.
Sure.
So I don't know if I'll continue on with it, but I like the 2 seasons I watched.
I have watched Peaky Blinders a few times, actually. I love Peaky Blinders.
A few times.
I love gangsters. You know, the old school. It's not quite Godfather because it's set in England, but same type of vibe. The old school, like family style gangsters. I'm all in.
Like there are rules type gangsters.
Yes, there's like a code of conduct, and these are things you do and don't do. I'm all in.
Is there like what other show would fall under that? Obviously, Sopranos sort of does, though that's more of a newer.
Yeah, I mean it's mostly movies.
Yeah.
Obviously Godfather. That's part of the reason I don't like Goodfellas as much, because it's a much more, the last like 45 minutes of Goodfellas is a tough hang because it's just a descent into what the actual, or, you know, a more realistic look at what the consequences of that life is. And it's the life of a soldier as opposed to, you know, a Don or a Kingpin. I like the romanticized view, obviously.
Did you enjoy the Scorsese movie that came out last year?
Irishman?
Yeah.
It was fine. It would have been better as an 8-episode miniseries.
It would have been better if they would have made that when those guys were younger, because the aging effect was very noticeable.
Wasn't good enough. Yeah.
And it was hard for me to deal with.
All because their faces may have looked 40, but they still moved like they were 80.
Yeah, it would have just, yes. Yeah, I think that's part of it.
I just can't buy Robert De Niro's 80-year-old body, 40-year-old face stomping a kid outside of a grocery store.
I was just thinking about that.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
I was just saying that was definitely one of them.
But I liked Boardwalk Empire. It was a good movie. It was a good show.
Another show that I stopped after exactly the second season for a similar reason. One of the main characters no longer involved after that.
Yeah, and it was fine. It wasn't great, but
yeah,
there's a certain amount of, I just really enjoy the aesthetics of it that I'll keep watching just for that.
Yeah, and I like Steve Buscemi a lot.
Yeah.
So I was actually kind of surprised that I didn't stick with it, but
it has a pretty satisfying ending.
Yeah. All right. I'll have to check that out. I'm in the market for a new show at this point in time. So I just finished up City on a Hill, the second season of that.
I just finished Mayor of Easttown.
Okay, is that people like it?
Very good.
You're on the people like it category.
Yeah.
I have yet to find anyone who's like, yeah, you can pass on it. Actually, Chuck Klosterman said that, but you know, Chuck Klosterman has interesting opinions for.
He does. He has very interesting takes.
Yeah, he's number one on my list of people I'd want to interview, but I don't think he would find any enjoyment.
Malcolm Gladwell's number one on mine.
Okay, that's good. They're in the same category. All right, Robbie, have a good weekend. I am out. We'll be back on Tuesday. Enjoy the 4th of July. Enjoy Monday as well.
Here's today's spent roaming, and to